working this dresser. It originally was, after it was sanded, it was kind of a really cool background. It was green with sanding marks and I really liked it, but I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. The color just wasn't working. So I painted it gray, and I want to make it lean toward more of a cat theme because this is a cat condo dresser that we're remaking. So I'm going to do some raised stenciling using some of these stencils that I got off Amazon and off Temu, and we'll see how it goes. I really have no idea what I'm doing. I had the plan, but I never ever follow my plan. I just kind of follow where it takes me, and it usually end up with something totally different than what I had in my mind, but that's okay. I like doing things that way. So I used a square to draw my line at the bottom because I'm gonna be doing some creative stenciling at the bottom and I want it straight. So have one of these. It comes in handy quite often. So a square is a really good thing to have. So let's see where we can go from here. I only did one layer of the gray to start out with, just to give me a foundation. After I do the raised stenciling, then I am going to paint my second coat of gray and then do a little decorating from there. Now this is a little bit thinner stencil than I normally use, so I'm going to get a little bit of a thinner rise to my raised stenciling, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be dramatic. And then I will use these two items to apply and smooth out. I am using Durham's water putty, mixed it with water until I got like a pudding type texture. I might even thicken that up a little bit more and then apply it. It looks like it's the right consistency. And this putty, this water putty dries really hard, is why I like to use it for raised stenciling. Okay, I think I'm going to leave that. Let's see how it goes. Okay, and then work on the other one. This one seems to be a little bit thicker. I got this one from Temu, so maybe it'll go a little easier. Of course, it helps that it's a small stencil rather than this big wide one with a lot of open space. Okay, let's see how this one goes. Oh yeah, much easier. I think I'm going to do my putty a little thicker on my next ones. I think it might be easier to work. Okay, let's take these up and see how it looks. Yep, I can see that's a little bit too wet, that it's bled a little bit, but that's no big deal. I've got little tools that'll take care of that. These little tools come in really handy. It's a hook and pick set. I use it on so many different things, and it just kind of allows you to get in there real close and very easily just pick up some things you don't want there. And I'm just going to pick up this part right here. It's easier than sanding it later. Get rid of it now. Let's move on. Next, I am going to, well, I think I'm gonna clean this off because I certainly don't want that drying on there. So I'm gonna clean my tools again and then get back at it. I made my Durhams a little bit thicker this time, and we'll see how it goes. This stencil is just a tad thicker, so it's gonna be a little bit easier to work with. This says love is all you need. And this is a kitty-based condo, so that fits really well. One day I've talked about this before, one day I'd like to do an animal rescue. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but that's kind of what my desire is. So this kind of goes with that theme. And let's see, here, let me show you how much thicker I made it. So we'll see if that works a little bit better. Oh yeah, that works a whole lot better. Thicker stencil and thicker Durhams. The smoother you get it, the easier it is to deal with later after it's dried. If you have ridges in it, you're gonna have to sand it if you don't want those ridges there. Now sometimes I do, because I do like texture. So you'll just have to decide. Ooh, that's really going on really well. It is a whole lot easier to do raised stenciling on a thicker stencil and a stencil that, you know, it isn't as wide open like that cat was. That was a little tricky. Oh, that looks good. I think I'm going to leave it. Good. Okay, let's see how it looks. Next, we will do some little bugs. We're going to go with dragonflies. Just a little tip, when I am working with something like Durham's, I wipe it off before I wash it because I don't want all that Durham's to go down in my sink trap, go down into my pipes. So I wipe it off and then I wash it, but I'm going to continue stenciling, so we will wash it later, and I will use a nail brush to wash it with. As you can see, when I stenciled this again, this was not completely dry, and it pulled up some of the cat, but it's not a big deal. I'll just put the stencil over him when he's dry and fill that in, because I have to fill in a little bit over here too. So I wanted to get it done. I wanted to use my Durham's before it dried completely, and it worked out okay. A lot of these kind of things can be fixed. You just got to know how to do it, and it's really no big deal just to put the stencil back on and fill in where I missed. And then I'll paint. I use the same method on the second side, raised stenciling with different motifs this time, and use the Durham's as well. As soon as it was dry, I took some sandpaper to it to soften the edges and to take out any ridges that shouldn't be there. And then I run my hand over it to make sure it's all smooth. Use my tool to take off any parts that shouldn't be there. And then used an old paintbrush that I use strictly for sweeping away dust to get the sanding dust off. And then I will paint my second coat of black on both sides. I laid out the products I thought I might want to use. I wasn't at this point really sure what I was going to do as far as embellishing in color, so I laid them all out. And then I brought out my little containers so I could do a little bit of mixing, because I knew I didn't want to have the bright orange. I wanted to tone it down a little bit. So I used my little containers to change the color. I used the paint colorant. This is the black from the Royal Collection and Retique it. And just add a couple drops to tone down the cider color, so I could use it to do a little bit of background embellishing. I like to use popsicle sticks to do my stirring, so that way I have a paint chip with the color on it. I had painted the top earlier in Willow, but I'll be adding some color to that as well, but that'll be in my next video. The front needed to have some sort of a faceplate on it so I could cover the edges of the carpet that I'll be installing. So we bought this trim and I painted it gray and used a nail gun to affix it to the front. I didn't want to just stop at having the Gothic gray for the background. I wanted to have a bit of color before I embellished the raised stenciling. So I'm using the apple cider and I'm going to do some blending. Now it's not real easy to blend a bright color with a dark color. So I'll show you how I did it on this. I just had to do a little bit of playing around with it to get the look that I wanted. But basically on this side, all I need is a little bit of blending at the top, and I'll show you why in a minute. So basically I just brushed on the orange, the spiced cider, and then added some of the gray to the bottom part so I'd have something to blend. I used a couple different brushes and brushed up and down and in circles and back and forth until I got the look that I wanted. I kept wiping off my brush because I needed a dry brush to be able to do the blending. I didn't really need the blending to be perfect because it's just part of the background. That's the first part. The next part of the background is going to be the stenciled motif that's going to bring the spiced cider color down, further down into the side of the dresser, and it will be behind my raised stenciling. I had to really think this through because I have many layers and I wanted to make sure that they all fell correctly in line to get the look that I needed. Next, I'm blending in Twilight Black, so I'll have a little bit of a varied color at the bottom as well. This is going right over the raised stenciling just like before, and we'll be blending it into the gray. Part 3 of this video series will show you how I decorated the top, how I embellished the raised stenciling that are on both sides of this dresser, and I will also show you how I decorated the drawer front. All products that I use on this can be found in my store, FurnitureFlippingMarket.com. See you in the next video.